What started with teenagers getting into their parents' pill bottles at parties ended with the death of a 19-year-old Boise man whose life and so many others cut short by opioids.
Now, Boise City leaders look to combat the epidemic by taking the fight to court. 6 on your side's Madeline White has this Finding Hope report.
In a lawsuit filed with the federal district court, Boise City officials are now accusing 20 pharmaceutical drug makers of deceiving doctors about health risks and promoting opioids while downplaying the risk of addiction. After tragically losing his 19-year-old son Carter, Boisean Scott Fisher is left with questions.
How does a kid who's Little League football player and soccer player and loved to play baseball, started duck hunting when he was 10 years old. He just loved the outdoors. How does a kid go from that to an opioid addiction?
Carter died from an opioid overdose in September, just a few months after graduating Boise High School. And now, through legislation, Boise City officials are playing their hand in fixing that very opioid problem.
The city of Boise will file in federal district court here in Boise a lawsuit against manufacturers and distributors of opioids,
seeking compensation from 20 pharmaceutical companies, alongside dozens of other cities across the country. The city of Boise makes 3 primary claims against opioid drug makers, including public nuisance, negligence, and RICO, or the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, which they're stating the industry violated.
We do believe that the industry conspired to violate FDA regulations in the Controlled Substance Act.
Mayor Beater says pursuing legislation is, quote, vital for the next step in tackling this issue.
We have seen far too many deaths from overdose, from 1 or 2 4 or 5 years ago to over 100 last year.
And the faces that make up those numbers, Fisher says, may surprise you.
It can happen to anyone.
And while he supports the lawsuit,
thank you, Mayor Beater,
he says his first hope is to reduce stigma. Through his grief, Fisher is working with national organizations like Shatterproof, which he says can provide education and funding for the Treasure Valley Partnership. Live in the studio, Madeline White, 6 on your side.